Private Affairs, the award-winning fiction podcast about Zimbabweans dating in the diaspora, is back for season 2. Kicking off with a group of friends jetting off to Thailand for an unforgettable birthday trip. Listen to Private Affairs on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you get your podcasts. This project has been assisted by the Australian government through the Australia Council for the Arts, its arts funding and advisory body.
Hello?
Yo, what up?
Hey.
Ooh, I love that hello. It's energetic. It's full of vibe. It's full of everything I've been dying for all weekend. Wagwan, girl. You all right?
You know how to gas I go up. Okay.
Welcome to the Feeling Station.
Thank you.
For those listening to this for the first time, it's a romantic family and friendship breakup podcast showcasing stories that people would like to talk about with a view to give you lessons from their experiences. I hope you find today's story entertaining, but more importantly, meaningful. Now, the podcast is popular for two main reasons. One, I do my best to keep my guests anonymous, which brings me to the fun part. Are you ready for this?
Yes, I'm ready.
So, in the normal fashion of the podcast, the name is from Africa. This time it's from Northern Africa, so it's an Arab name. And your name is Kahina.
Kahina.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty. What is it?
Yeah, it doesn't sound too bad, right? Right. And Kahina means the fortune teller.
Oh, okay.
I don't know how true that is, because if you could read into the future, you would not be on this podcast today.
You know,
because
I hope it applies to the future me.
Yeah, exactly. You would have seen whatever is coming, right? So,
yes.
I'm hoping at the end of this, right, we might have some lessons that you can apply into the future, our beloved fortune teller.
We shall see.
And the second reason why the podcast is doing great is they're real life lessons that people learn from the experiences that you're going to share today. So, have you got lessons for us?
Oh, I thought long and hard. And then, I just decided to keep it simple.
Cool.
I have 4 lessons, and my first lesson is...
Keeping it simple, and you got 4, yeah?
Yeah, it's simple. It's a little here. This episode, it wasn't that fan.
It's simple for me, yeah? Is 1 lesson. The average number is about 3, and you've gone beyond 3, you're at 4. So this is by no means simple. But anyway, let's see what they like anyway. What are you saying?
Okay, so the first lesson is not everyone is meant to be a parent.
Oh!
No, there's some beautiful people who are not meant to be parents. They're just beautiful people, and they should just keep it at being beautiful people. And then there's some people who are meant to be parents,
Okay, number 2.
So number 2 is you can't change people who don't want to change.
Oh, yeah. Too damn true. Yeah. You got a third lesson?
And that one is accountability is everything.
Oh, yes. Amen to that. And number 4.
And my last lesson is there's no understanding crazy.
Yeah.
You can't rationalize it. It's just crazy is crazy. You can't rationalize it.
I like that, though. I like that. So I'll just play those back. Lesson number 1, not everyone is meant to be a parent. I'm really keen on that one. Number 2, you can't change people who don't want to change. Number 3, accountability is everything. And lesson number 4, there's no understanding crazy. Crazy is crazy, period.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, cool. This gets me curious. This is not a romantic breakup then, is it?
No, it's a family, it's a mother and daughter breakup. Yeah.
Okay, when you say mother and daughter, is that you and your mom?
Yes, me and my mom.
So needless to say, I don't even need to get a name for your mom. She's just mom.
Oh, yeah. But there's a bunch of people who'll be playing a factor, which also I try to keep it simple because, hey, names.
Yeah. So what, are you going to give them names or you're just going to call them brother, sister, uncle, cousin?
Oh, so I have a bunch of aunties. So I decided to go naming them by auntie 1, auntie 2, auntie 3, and auntie 4.
Oh, fucking hell, mate. 4 aunties, yeah?
Yes.
and are all of these your mother's sisters?
No. Crazy enough, they are all adoptive aunties.
Oh, okay. So aunties from the hood.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Hey.
Yeah.
Chale, I like this one. All right, cool. Right, let's get into it. So,
okay.
Describe your mom.
Okay, how do I describe my mom? My mom is a beautiful human being as long as you don't know her personally, right? She paints a very beautiful picture.
Yeah.
She's a very beautiful on paper. Like on paper, very wonderful person, very caring. You know, the first time you meet her, she's very charming.
Yeah.
You'll be like, oh my goodness, this woman is amazing. You know, everybody growing up, all my friends will be like, I love your mom. I wish I lived at your home. You know, that's like the type of person she is. She'll be in any, I want to say, social setting. She is the bubbly person, helping out, going above and beyond in any social setting, anything, you know, she's a church going lady, very strict, very straight to the point, kind of, but in a nice and beautifully wrapped.
Yeah. But with you in an intimate space, she's a different person altogether.
Yes.
So let's talk siblings. Are you an only child or you got brothers, sisters?
I have a younger brother.
Now, does your younger brother share the same sentiment about your mom?
Yes.
Oh dear.
But you know what? Everybody has a different experience, right? So his is not quite as, I want to say, painted as red as mine is.
Yeah.
So, you know, that plays into a factor like, you know, as an older sibling, you shelter your other siblings through a lot of things, right?
So that's what you've done.
I felt like I did a lot of that growing up. Yeah.
Let's just talk about your dad for a second.
Oh, my dad, actually, he's going to be part of the story later on.
Later on. Okay. So do you want us to touch on him later on, just not now?
Oh, yeah, we can touch on him like later on. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. I don't know if there's any point trying to establish what the good times were because it feels like you have a lot to unload about your mom. So literally, it's the ball is in your court. Go for it.
All right. So you know what I would say. What's relevant is like I wasn't my childhood. I wasn't really raised with by my mom. I was raised in Zim by my grandma. So me and my younger brother, we were raised in Zim until I think I was 13. And then, you know, when you're growing up with your mom living overseas and you're being raised by your grandma, all these kids who have their parents, you always have this picture of like one day me and my mom.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you always have this longing for a parent, right? Like, even though my grandma did everything to not make us feel that way, you know, we're part of the family. We called my grandma mom. Everybody, like me and my brother, we called her mom. But deep down, we're like, you know, we still have our mom. And fast forward a few years later, so we moved overseas. And then the first time we like moved here, I think it was in like a month in, my mom goes like, you know, those red flags, right? This is when they start. She's like, you know, if you ever tell anyone that what's going on at home, it's not going to be like back home where people will just like laugh it off. You guys are going to be taken into protective custody and you'll never see each other and you'll be separated, da 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 da. And for her, she's like, you know, like if I hit you at home, like, you know, back home, like, you know, like a small little beating back home is normal.
Yeah.
And you guys go advertising it here, it's not going to be the same. They're going to take this seriously. And for me and my brother, we're like, well, we never advertised being beaten at back home as well. It was not like, you know, a fun thing, but well, okay, whatever, you know, you put it in, like, whatever. And then, so at the time, my mom introduced me, when we first moved, she introduced me to all these aunties. So it's like, hey, these are your aunties. These are the people you'll go to. Like, if you need anything, if I can't be around or anything like that. And everything is good until I want to say 6 months in when we're finally comfortable.
So,
and then you see.
so I'm going to pause it there for a second. So your mom lived overseas, and because she was overseas, you were raised by your grandma until you turned the age of, did you say 13?
Yes.
And then at 13, you moved over to be with your mom, and then you're with your mom, and then she introduces you to a bunch of aunties that you're about to talk about now.
Yeah.
Well, 6 months
the
into
story
you
goes
settling.
on.
Yeah. So this is 6 months. Okay, cool. That is very clear now. Go on.
Yeah. So for me, I wasn't, I wasn't used to these people. The only person, also I forgot to mention, like my uncle, who was the only person, like he's the only like blood relative to my mom, and he was living with us at the time when me and my brother we moved overseas. So he was living in the same house, and I started noticing like tensions were very harsh, like between him and my mom, and I didn't understand like what's going on because my uncle's like this fun person who's very like joyful person, and all of a sudden, like out of nowhere, he moves out without letting us know anything. We're like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then my uncle loved to spend time with me and my brother. No matter what, he was like, he would take us out to like movies and everything. He just enjoyed spending time with us. And all of a sudden, he doesn't want to see us anymore. Like, no matter what, we'll be like, oh, we want to go spend the weekend at his place. We don't even get like a call from him. And I was like, nope, he's not about it. Nope, he doesn't want to spend time with you guys. Move on. And I'm like, okay, something weird, but hey, I was trusting her, right? And I'm like, yeah, my mom will never steer me wrong. She knows there's probably something bigger going on. She's not letting us know.
Yeah.
And then, so with all these aunties that she's introduced us to, me and my brother, we've basically kept to ourselves. We're not very like big and like into knowing other people, because back home we were a close-knit family. So outsiders were not a thing that we associated with a lot. So finally we're building relationships with these people, and every single time, it started very slowly. Like every single time my mom would be like, oh, let's say me and my brother will go spend time with auntie number one. She will be like, why did you go spend time there? Her house is this and this. Or she'll be like, she's a witch, right? You can't eat her food. So we are confused, and she is serious.
That would be very confusing, right? So you made the effort to introduce me to all these aunties. I'm hanging out with your auntie friends. And suddenly you're calling them witches. Like, what is it? Are they a witch? Are they worth knowing or not?
You're like, what's going on? And then also with this, like she moved us far away from everybody else. She packed us up within 3 months. We didn't even know this was happening. She just told us 1 week before we moved, because we noticed her packing up. We were just like, oh, maybe she's, doing spring cleaning, trying to get rid of things. She's not saying anything. And then 1 week later, she's like, hey, I am moving to a different city. I'm going to go get me sorted out over there with our housing situation. And then I'm going to come back, and then I'm going to come and get you guys. So my brother and I are like, this is weird. What is this? Like, this has never happened before, where we just get moved without not being told anything. So, well, okay, whatever, fine. We moved to that different city, and this is where my mom gets really close with auntie number one, and they're almost like best friends at this point. They do everything together. And then my mom was like kind of single. Not really single, because her relationship with my dad was not the best relationship. So
I know this is not about your mom and your dad, but I can't ignore the fact that you said your mom was kind of single. So I got one question. Were your mom and dad ever married?
Yes.
So how is she kind of single?
This is like, that's what I was so confused as well, because from my knowledge, they were married. But while I'm living with mom is dating. So my dad was...
So you knew mom was seeing other men?
Yes, my dad didn't live with us. My dad lived in SA.
And
So
your mom was seeing other men because she would leave the house and say, I'm going to go meet a guy, or how did you put that together?
Oh, no, like, when people are like dating somebody, you know how they act. And then actually she's introduced, her first actual relationship, which I don't know, Tinto, this one is for another one. Because her first relationship, she came forward with, I was turning 17 and it was a woman. So for me, all my life, my mom has been straight, and then all of a sudden, there's now a woman in the picture.
How did she introduce this woman as an auntie, or?
Oh no! She took me out for my birthday, lunch, and she's like, "Hey, you know what? I've been seeing someone, and this is not a regular person, like your regular Uncle Joe." So I'm like, "Okay, what's going on? What's wrong with him?" And then she's like, "Oh, it's a him. I mean, it's a her." And I have nothing against with people's sexual orientation or anything like that, but I was so confused. I'm like, all this time, and all of a sudden, and then it moved really quickly. So within like her telling me about this woman, a month later, we were all like moving into each other's houses.
Mud ting.
Yeah, I was, and then not only like not saying this woman was like of a like Caucasian, so completely different from what we're used to with our African selves. And she had a daughter as well, so we noticed like my mom, when my mom is in a relationship, she goes on this bubble where she doesn't care about whatever's going on around her. Like, we could be starving to death, she won't even notice that she's starving to death because her relationship is going so good. So this other woman started, being abusive to me and my brother.
How?
And like the yelling, that she would just yell at us for no good reason. And then, like the hush, like, you can't open windows, your bedroom window. She'll come and watch you, be like, hey, you can't open your bedroom windows, taking away things, like making sure you're locked up while her daughter has all the freedom in the world.
And just as you described, your mom wouldn't really be bothered by this because her relationship is too good for her to care.
Yeah. So there was a time this woman actually kicked me out of the house in the middle of the night. So I had no shoes on. I had nothing. She just lost it and kicked me out of the house. So I'm like wandering the streets in the middle of the night. I'm like 17, barely dressed, don't have any shoes on. And then after they finally found me, because I had to go to a park, that was the only place I knew. I was like, oh, I'm just going to go sit by the park over there because I don't know anywhere else to go. So around 4 a.m., they started looking for me, and then they found me. And then the conversation that I...
4 in the morning?
Yeah. Because my mom was working overnight, so my mom didn't know what was going on. And the people who started looking for me was actually the lady's daughter and my younger brother. She was like, I don't care, da 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 da. So when they found me, they're like, oh, we're sorry this happened to you. She lost her mind. She was in the wrong, blah, 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 blah. And I just didn't care. And I expected my mom, to like care, to be like, you can't do that to my child. And my mom had a conversation with me. She was like, you know what? I'm so proud you walked away from that situation.
Yeah. Okay.
I was so confused.
This is going to be my comment. This is going to send me down a rabbit hole, and I'm going to lose the essence of what you really want to talk about. So I would like you to make a promise to me.
Yeah.
That I have a separate episode with you just to talk about the dynamics around the relationships, which is your mom, sexuality, and your dad, right? And the focus is on you, how that has made you feel and what that has done to you as an individual. Because there might be somebody out there listening to this and thinking this is the situation for me, and I'd like to draw some lessons for this.
Okay.
So do you promise me to do an episode separate with just that?
Yeah, sure. We can do an episode. Yeah.
Cool. So we're going to park that. I'm not even going to pursue that anymore because I can tell this is going to be way too deep for me to deal with in this episode.
Oh, no. This episode is
right? So let's take it back. Right? Let's take it back. We're right back to where you were. Go for it.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's just like, I'm so proud of you for walking away from this whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like completely dumbfounded, and I'm just like, okay, what's going on? And then at the same time, like, for me, I've always wanted to, like, prove something to my mom, to be like, hey, I want you to be proud of me. I want you to look at me and be happy. And, like, I've always wanted to be like that child who always makes her mother proud. So some of the things, like, like for me, like I started working at 16. I had like my job at 16 after school. I had everything like, handled. But like my mom didn't have to pay for a phone bill, nothing. She didn't have to buy me clothes. On top of that, when I'm like, I'll come home from school and cook dinner, make sure the house is clean, make sure everything is good. Cause, my mom can't deal with finding the house messy. She'll lose it.
Yeah.
So with all of that, and I'm like, I think, I was thinking I'm pretty much of a good kid, but like, no matter what you'll do, nothing will ever make her like happy. And so with me, I have this other like weird condition where I have like knee issues since I've been a child.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started working, sometimes when I'm working, like my knees would just give in, like I would be in so much pain, and then I'll start like I will cry, like I will be screaming in pain. And then my mom will come pick me up, and she'll be so pissed. Mind you, she's not doing anything when I'm calling her to be like, hey, I'm in this much pain. This is what's happening. She's sitting at home on her day off, doing nothing. I'm not interrupting anything. And she'll come, and then she'll be like, I'm going to take you to the hospital, and you better bring the same energy that you were crying and screaming at before I drop. And then she will drop me off at the hospital and say, find your way back home. She won't even go inside with me.
No.
She would just leave me there. Or whenever I'll be like sick, like, where I'm like, okay, I'm sick, I can't go to school. She'll be like, well, the phone number for the school, and then you know where to look for medicine. And then she won't even check on me, nothing, and just go. Like I could die in the living room and she wouldn't even care.
Yeah.
She'll be like, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So I was just like, for me, that I was not used to that. But then he taught me how to grow up fast, right? Like, hey, when you're like this is this, there's no time for you to be babied.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, fine, whatever. So around when I turned 18, I moved out and I went to school, to uni. And then while I was in uni, my mom had a surgery. And I remember being so like worried about her because she's like, my brother, I love my younger brother, but like, man, he's not that like very useful around like younger men, like, young like teenagers, like telling him, oh, you need to make sure she has her meds. You need to make sure she's this and this when he has his friends. I'm not like, he was great, but he's not the best. And also trying to make sure to keep the house clean and all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So when she had her surgery, I knew she was like bedridden, stuck to her bed. I would make sure to call her every single day and check in. And I'm like trying to like, make her proud, be like, hey, like this is what's going on with me. I had zero filter when it came to her. And I remember when it came to like my midterms, I was so excited because I'm like, I struggled in school. Like growing up, I struggled. I was not the best student. But I remember getting one of my midterms back, and it was like a 92%. And I was shocked.
Jeez.
I was like, oh my goodness. So I call her and I'm like, oh my God, you won't believe it. She's like, well, I brought you all this way for you to get a 92%. You can't tell me you can get 100%.
What? Wow.
I graduated uni with honors.
Wow.
And she sat there on her phone the entire time when I was going to get my my ribbons and everything. She sat on her phone, bored out of her mind.
That is unbelievable.
I was like, okay, you know what? It's okay. So while I was also away in uni, my mom started dating someone else. So the woman, her and the woman, they broke up.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom was like, I have found the Lord. Which I was like, well, I thought you already had the Lord. What's going on? But okay, that's a story for another day, you know?
Okay.
No, me, I'm just like, you keep changing up. I'm not understanding, you know? I'm down with whatever. I was like, so like, craving her approval that no matter what, I will be 150% championing you all the way. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
Do you want the gay flags? I will paint the house like rainbow. We're doing this all the way. We're not, you know. And with every single like step my mom will take, I'll be there. I'm like, I'm championing you. I want you to like, you know, to feel like, hey, there's someone here for you. So she started dating someone else and he moved into the house. I didn't know about it. She didn't tell me about this man at all. And the only thing I'm hearing about is like from my brother, where my brother loves to gossip with me. So he'll call me and be like, sir. So he's moved into the house, or he's doing this. This is happening. And then I'll call, mind you, I'm talking to my mom every single day. There's no mention of a man. Zero mention. We will talk for at least 30, 40 minutes. Nothing. No mention of her seeing anybody, nobody moving into the house, nothing. And then one day when she comes down to like the city I was living in, she comes to see me, and then all of a sudden she introduces me to this man, and they are engaged.
What?
But
how long has she
didn't tell?
How long has she been seeing you for?
I don't know. That's the thing. I was like, it was less than a year. That's how much I know. Maybe 6 months at tops.
Mad thing. But
then the thing is, I didn't find out that they were engaged through her telling me when they came down. She came down and introduced him, like, this is the man, he's my friend. She said that's her friend. And then the family group chat back home where we're all added with the people, my grandmother and everybody. She posted on the group chat, like, I don't know why you people are upset with this man. He's a good man and I want to marry him, blah, 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 blah. And he's already proposed. So I am reading the text. I'm like,
So, okay, I promised I wouldn't do this, but I'm dying to ask. The family group is talking about another man getting engaged to her. What is the family group saying about your dad and your mom?
Oh, my mom said now she's telling everybody that she's divorced.
But was she divorced?
Hey, we don't know. I don't know to this day. So
even up until now, you don't know whether your mom is divorced or she's not divorced?
I've never seen the papers. She told me she was divorced. Hence the reason why now, like, you know, she's marrying multiple. Mind you, there's going to be multiple people who are going to be engaged to her.
Right.
So this is not the first one.
Do you talk to your dad?
Well, not anymore. Well, my dad passed, right?
Oh.
So, yeah.
Okay.
But like when he was alive, we still didn't talk like that. My dad, he and I barely mentioned my mom. Like, he'll ask how she's doing. So I think for his sanity, my dad tried to not mention anything towards her, because I feel like he would have lost it. Right. But then it'll be different, because on the other end, the everything was colored. My mom would mention everything about my dad, like every single argument, things, you know, a child shouldn't know about their parents. She told us everything, to the point, like, sometimes now I'm looking back, I'm like, was any of this even true? Because she did like make like that relationship between me and my dad. It was very like, after hearing some of the stories, it was very hard for me to just pretend like we're good, because I'm like, hey, this is not okay. But then at the same time, like, my mom, I felt like she wanted everybody to be on her side no matter what. So she made sure to color everybody's perspective when it came to my dad, to the point like my brother didn't have a relationship with my dad.
Jeez.
And then like, I could, in my full like 26 years of life, my dad, I know for a fact, has never once mentioned a single bad thing about my mom.
Wow.
So it was like, now that I think back, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never once heard him utter a single bad thing. Actually, if I was like moving mad, he would check me real quick. You'll be like, that's your mom. You need to have some respect for that woman.
Yeah, that has just done something to me, man.
It's interesting. You're just like, okay. So
back to the one, where okay, this guy's now getting introduced to the family. This is my husband. I told you he's a good man. Blah 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 blah. What happened next?
And all of a sudden, I think it was a year in. My brother starts texting me, Mom is sleeping on the couch. Why is she sleeping on the couch? I don't know. She's not telling me anything. And I'm calling my mom, hey, is everything okay? Yeah, everything is good. And then I want to say like 3 weeks later, this man moves out and they are done.
Yeah, nah.
And you're just like, what happened? Nothing. You don't hear anything from that one. You're just like, okay, you just move on, right? And then a couple months later, her and my dad start talking together. Like, they're like, start talking as if they're getting together.
Yeah.
And it was so weird because she would talk to him on the phone, but then at the same time turn around and be like, do you see this useless man?
Eesh.
Do you see what he's saying? And you are just like, oh my goodness. And then not only is she saying this too, like, it would be better if she was just saying this too, like, just keeping it to her children. No. She's calling my uncle. Like, now they have a relationship because that relationship with my mom, everybody, it's on and off. So now they're back on. So she's calling him. She's telling him everything and being like, oh, he's so good for nothing. Da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And they will be laughing together and, for me, I'm just like watching on the sideline being like, yeah, just trying to not associate myself with it. And then after I graduated from uni, I couldn't find a job, had some time, so I was struggling. My part-time job wasn't paying like my rent fully, so I had to move back home. And when I moved back home, I feel like there's something when you're a child and you can tolerate things or you can tell yourself this is something else. But once you are now like somewhat grown and you see things the way they are, it's completely different.
Yeah.
So when I moved back home, my mom was like, hey, remember auntie number one? Well, she had a back injury and she's fine. She's okay. Like nothing crazy. She just needs some help. And then her company is hiring. Do you maybe like want to do that? Like it's going to be light. You're going to be getting paid. You're not going to be doing much because, it's like family.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay. Oh, this is another lesson. Don't work with family. Don't work with family. Don't work for family.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm.
So when I was working with auntie number one, she's almost like my mom.
Yeah.
Almost the same. So the first 3 weeks, things are good. Things are fine, we're chilling, I'm making her tea, we're hanging out, she's my auntie, everything is fine. And then she starts little by little, like the small abuse things, like this woman took it all the way, in those African movies where you see the abusive stepmom who crumples things on the ground and throws them, it makes the other person to come like pick them up. She would do things like that, like I'll be standing there. Instead of her just handing me the paper she wants me to go put in the garbage, she will crumple it up, standing next to her, and she'll throw it on the ground and say, can you pick that up and go throw it in the garbage? And then, she would make so many comments, and it was just a horrible, work environment. And then most of the times, I had, my friend with me on the phone, because I could have my phone, right, on. So I had my headphones on. So my friend is listening to all these things. And she's like, I don't know how you're still at this job. And for me, I was also trying to protect the relationship between her and my mom, because I'm like, I don't want to say this to my mom, just in case, my mom actually becomes a mom and decides to end that relationship. I'm like, I don't want to cause any trouble. But then this auntie will call my mom and tell my mom like, hey, she didn't do XYZ. And then lying to my mom, all of this, just calling her out of the blue and lying. And then my mom, when I get home, she will yell at me and scream at me about not doing whatever at work. And then on top of that, she'll be like, you need to get out of this dead-end job. Why did you even get to this stupid job? And I'm so confused. I'm like, you're the one who told me to take this job. And now you're telling me it's a dead-end job. I need to quit, which I understood. Like, yeah, it hasn't, mind you, it hasn't been a year since I've been at this job. I haven't been there for a year. And now my mom is making me pay rent at home. And I'm trying to be saving money for school.
Yeah.
So she's taking half of my paycheck for rent. And then she stopped paying the other bills in the house. Like, paying for electricity, paying for cable and internet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was paying for those things. And then I'm also buying food for the entire household. Plus my mom works, she works 2 full-time jobs. And she has renters as well. So now that I'm older, when I'm doing the calculations, I was like, whoa, what? How is this?
She was getting quite a bit of money, wasn't she?
No, she was making a lot of money. Because even there was a time I saw her taxes. I almost passed out. I was like, this woman makes a lot. And she would scream at me for that money. And then she once moved in this other uncle one time for a few weeks. And then she told me to get rid of my room. So I had to share my room with her. But I was still paying rent. And
when you say this uncle, is it a blood uncle or?
No, none of this except my actual uncle. None of this. That's why I say this sub uncle, this, this.
Hey.
Yeah. And then the thing is, it was so uncomfortable because this grown man who was in his 50s kept on hitting on me every single day, every chance he got.
Did you tell your mom?
And I tell her, say why? She'll say I seduced him. So I couldn't say anything. You just you try and avoid both ends. Because if my mom comes home, people will ask us why are you guys sweeping the floor when there's nothing on the floor? We used to sweep and mop every single night. And there's nobody at home all day long. Nobody's at home. We come home around 6 p.m. And then all of a sudden we have to sweep and mop. And my mom would find a glass in the sink and she would run upstairs and bang on your door while you're sleeping at 6 a.m. and just scream and lose it. Or she will be fine and you guys will be laughing. And then a second later, without knowing what's going on, she'll start yelling at you or she'll grab whatever is next to her and just hit you with it. Wow. So this, so you never felt safe sitting next to my mom. She will come home and then 5 minutes later, me and my brother will be sitting in the living room, we'll be all laughing and whatnot. But 5 minutes after she comes home and sits on the couch, we find an excuse to leave. Because you can't be in the same room with her. It's just, no. She just, this woman, it was interesting. And so when I was working with this auntie, when it's going back and forth, they're both yelling at me and both of them are they're lying. And then one time, sometimes my mom will come to auntie's house during my shift, and then they'll sit and drink coffee together or tea. They'll be laughing, things are good. And then at the end of my shift, we're going home, and then the minute we get into the car, she starts bad mouthing her, oh, she's such a useless woman, or do you even see her child? Something is wrong with that. That child was not brought into this earth naturally. She's a witch. Blah blah.
Everyone's a witch, yeah.
I've been called a witch too. So, you will cook something at an auntie number one's house, and then I'll bring it home, and then my mom will ask me were you there when this food was being cooked? And I'm like, of course, I'm the one who made it. She'll eat it. If I wasn't there, she'll say throw it out. But then you will see her the next day eating at the same house.
Wow.
And with the food that I didn't cook.
Wow.
you just keep getting whiplash. It's so confusing. You're like, what's going on?
Wow.
You just like, no matter where you go, you don't get peace because they just kept on going. They're like love and hate relationship together.
Yeah.
So after like a year, I was like, I'm done. I can't live in this house anymore. And I had been applying for jobs outside of the city, like back to the city, like I was going to school for, like at. And then I got a job. So I came back down to the city, and then the day I interviewed, the next day they called me. I moved in. Like one of my aunties, like I would say auntie number 3.
Yeah.
Was like, hey, you know what? Why don't you move in with me, rent free until you you make up money for you to like find your own place. And for me, moving in with you, I already know what it's like, from my experience. It's never good. So I move in with her, and then I start asking her, okay, how much you want me to pay for it? She's like, no, you don't pay anything. And she's like, oh, but like, keeps asking me like money. I keep asking her money wise, how can I help out?
Yeah.
And then she starts asking me, she's like, were you paying money at home? And I was like, yes. And then some of the conversation, she starts asking me a little bit more about my mom. And she's like, auntie number 1, I knew the things that you're telling me about. She was capable of those things. I just didn't know she was capable of doing them to family because we consider you family. But with your mom, I'm so surprised because you know what? You're telling what you're saying is sounding like your mom is a narcissist. I'm like, don't be putting words, hey. I'm getting defensive. I'm like, no, my mom is not. My mom is the best.
Yeah. But why do you feel the need to defend your mom, knowing exactly what your mom is like?
I don't know. I was so clouded. I just wanted. I think I wanted something out of her. I wanted her to become this person like who actually genuinely cares. I wanted her to be a mom. So no matter what, I had that in my head. Like maybe one day something will change. So I didn't want to let myself believe like she's this person.
Right. Okay.
So like, I after 2 months, I move out on my own. Like I move out. I had a friend. We moved in together. Things are good. And then I got down to see my mom for the weekend. And when I was going down to see her, I remember I was so uncomfortable with the whole thing because I had spoken to one of my aunties and I told her what had happened. So my auntie, so I'll say this is auntie number 4. Yeah. Auntie number 4, just she's one of those no filter aunties. If I tell her someone did me wrong, she's gonna approach you and she's gonna like say, hey, this is this. So she approached my mom and she was like, hey, this other woman is doing XYZ to your child. I don't understand why you will like let this person do this. And this is what's going on. Then my mom's like, oh no, this is a lie. That never happened. And also I'm trying to teach her life experience. So if I rush in every single time someone hurts her, she's never going to learn life experience.
Okay.
And for me, I believed it. I was like, okay. But then I finally, I approached my mom and I was like, hey, I didn't know you knew this information. And if you had known it, some of the things didn't have to happen the way they happened. You could have done something about it. Yeah. And then my mom, of course, my mom is like, oh, you're disrespectful for coming at me, but I forgive you. Because, she's a woman of God. I forgive. Every single time she's like, it is well, I forgive you.
Yeah.
So you left confused as to why are you forgiving me? But you just let it go.
The trouble is with you. So why are you actually forgiving you? Like where? How?
That's why I say you can't reason with crazy. You can never understand crazy. And then, so things are just not good. So me and my mom kind of stopped talking a little bit over that incident because I'm like, you're constantly doing things and saying things, but then you never actually are that person. Like to other people, you're the greatest person ever. To me, you're not a great mom.
Yeah.
And in hopes this will change our situation, right? No, sadly, the time I stopped talking to her, my mom had traveled back home. And with that time when she traveled back home, she found my father sick. And my father, like, a week later passed away from cancer.
Oh, no. Hey, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that. Hey.
Yeah, it sucks, but life. And then it started hitting me because my mom and my dad were talking a lot. And then, like, sometimes when my mom would, like, after she finished talking to my dad, she would call me and vent about that conversation. And then I remember a couple months back, she told me, like, your father's been complaining. He's sick. He's just trying to, like, find an excuse to run away from, like, the projects that I have him to do. He's trying not to do any of these projects. And turns out, like, my dad was actually, like, showing signs of actually being sick. But my mom was like, no, you have to stay doing your project, like, this project. This is something you agree to. You can't, like, you can't back out of it now. So while my mom is back home, like, I was trying to, like, get answers as to why is my dad in the ICU? Can I speak to him? Can I at least see pictures? Can I get any information? My mom refused everybody to share any information with us. Like, it's quiet. You don't hear anything. And then she's the only one who could tell us information. So to me, it was like, oh, okay, what's going on? Like, it's so unreal. Like, you're telling me my father's sick. My father's never been sick a day in his life. And all of a sudden now he's passed away a week later and no one is giving me any information and you're refusing for people to tell me information. And it was just because my mom was, like, cooking up her own story to come share with us. And then, because, like, when she comes back, she's like, yeah, your father was sick. And apparently there was another woman in the story, blah, 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 blah. And this other woman was pretending to be his wife, but I'm his wife. So I was confused. I was like, okay, what do you mean? Didn't you people get divorced?
Yeah, it must have been confusing because, she's saying there was another woman, but I was the wife.
Yeah.
But at some point she was ready to get married to, to the other woman. And then she was also prepared to get married to the other girl.
To the other man, yeah.
So, like, this must have been incredibly confusing for you.
So I am asking, I'm like, when you guys, like, divorced? She's like, no, he's my husband. We were never divorced. Okay. And for her, like, my father's death, apparently it was, like, very traumatic. And she just was like, she was like, I lost everything. I can't even think straight. He was my everything. But, like, I was sitting there, like, Tinto, I'm one of those people, like, God made me a certain way.
Yeah.
Where I cannot sit and watch someone who's in pain and not do anything about it.
Right.
And I don't hold on to things or anything like that. But, like, that moment when because I had finally asked some of my uncles, I was like, you have people back home. Like, I'm asking you have people back home. Can you at least tell me what they're saying? Because I'm not getting anything from this side. And then my uncle is the one who's finally telling me, oh yeah, your father, there was this woman. So I knew some of the story that was going on. But then at the same time, my mom will call my uncle and be laughing and be like, this man is dead. You won't believe it. And these people are expecting me to be sad and crying, blah, 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 blah. And she will be laughing and then turn around and go out into the funeral and pretend like she's completely distraught.
Oh my God.
So she's, like, two-facing, like nobody, being deserving of an Oscar, putting on her performance. So when she came back, and then she's trying to tell me the story and trying to get the reaction, I'm sitting there, like, just trying to watch her. I'm watching and it's like, it's almost comically funny because I was just sitting there, like, unmoved and just waiting to see how far and how many details, because some of the things she wasn't even saying. And she's like, just read the reports, read the hospital reports. But I'm like, why couldn't you just, if this was what you were going to do, you could have just sent me the reports. I didn't have to come all this way. Yeah. And you didn't have to come all this way for this. Because prior to my dad passing, we were not talking.
Yeah.
So you could have just sent me these reports, but okay, I'll let you go with your story. And of course, she got the sympathy she wanted from my brother. My brother fell for it, And I, like, the next day, I came back to the city. I was like, I'm done. I don't want to, be playing these back and forth games.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was like, okay, you know what? We just went through a huge loss, and I'm not just going to pretend like, you know, nothing happened. And I'm going to like continue, like maybe this time around, my mom's and I's relationship is going to be different. So I went back like I always do. Like I'll be like, I'm not talking to you. And then I'll go back. And then things were going somewhat okay because like at this time, I would say some things. And then whenever she starts going her way of like trying to separate us, because she would call family members and tell them, I'm a horrible child, I'm this and this and this. So she's calling people, just lying to them about me. And all of these things I'm finding out from other family members saying like, why is your mom calling me saying I'm abusing you? Why is your mom calling me saying this and this? And I'm confused as to why. I'm like, no, these are the same people that she's calling are the same people that she said, you know, like these are people who will protect you. The same aunties, except for auntie number one. That one's special.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I figured, yeah.
Yeah. So after like my dad's passing, her and I finally like, you know, slowly start talking. And then but I never felt safe to be like alone in a room with her. So whenever I go visit, because you never know what comes out of her mouth, but she acts right in front of people, right? So I used to take my roommate to travel with me to like whenever I go visit my mom. If I'm staying there for 2 days, my roommate's going to be there for 2 days. And I would tell her like, you are not allowed to leave me alone with her. And my roommate mostly like she could hear, she had overheard some of the conversations, and then she already knew like, okay, yeah, you are not allowed to be alone with your mom. Like, because some of like the trauma that my mom installed, like my roommate is the one who had like to help me like work through it. Like even like when my roommate would open my door a certain way, I would jump and panic. So like she would be like, oh no. So like she had to work towards different ways of like, you know, our relationship to work. And then for me to like trust like nobody's gonna come and hurt me in the middle of my sleep. So it was very interesting. But like, you know, I made it past that. I'm like, I'm doing good. And then so in one of our trips, like my mom had come down to see me in my city, and I had gone down to see her like at her hotel room. I was with my roommate, and she is like laying down, getting ready to go to bed, and she answers a phone call. And then, you know, like a FaceTime call. And she's like, hey, you. I'm like, who are you talking to? Because not even 6 months ago, you were crying over my father. So who's this person? And she's like, no, I'm just talking to my pastor. It's nobody. It's just my pastor. I'm like, okay. The minute we leave the room, we're like, that's definitely not her pastor. There's something going on. Jesus. She denied it and denied it and denied it. And then, like, I would say 3 months later, she said, hey, I'm planning a trip to a different city, a different country in Africa.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I'm going for a church retreat.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, cool. Go ahead. Yeah, you know, good. Go pray for us, you know. She goes, and then she comes back. And while she was there, I was talking to her. Another thing, like when me and my mom are talking, I tend to call her every day because I want to check in. I want to make sure she's doing good. So I was calling her every single day. We will FaceTime, we will talk. And then when she came back to the country, and then I had a FaceTime with her like 2 days after she lands. And then in a FaceTime, she flashes me her hand. And I'm like, what is this? And she's like, oh, you don't know what a wedding ring and an engagement ring is?
Oh, Lord of mercy. And who is she engaged to now? The pastor?
Oh, no. She's married. To
the pastor, yeah?
Yeah, to this pastor man. And I was like, I don't even, to this day, I don't know this man's name.
What do you mean?
She never told me anything about him. Like, Tinto. You know this man as much as I know him. I know nothing.
You gotta be joking.
And I was like, okay, so you were there and we spoke every single day and you chose not to tell me anything. And I'm like, she was like, oh, I was trying to, you know, not get like bad vibes and da. I was like, when have I never not supported you in every single thing you've done? And I would not be out here telling you, no, you can't marry this person. I'm not the person who's marrying them. Like, you know, you can tell me. I'm not an acquaintance. I'm your child. You want me to tell you about my life, but you choose not to tell me about yours. And then, like, not only have you gone and married this man, you just now, like, our lives are entangled with him. So from that day, I was like,
So this man, out of his own initiative, has not tried to reach out to you as his stepchildren?
That's the thing. She was like, oh, you never reached out to him. When did he reach out to me? That was my question to her, because he never did. I'm like, you are a grown man. You can't call someone before you marry into that family and be like, hey, let me introduce myself. Because, oh yeah, by the way, this man is a pastor. He's a man of God. But so yeah, and then I was like, oh, we got married out of convenience. We couldn't even it wasn't even because of love or whatnot.
Who's saying this? Him or her?
This is my mom when she's trying to explain. I'm like, what do you mean convenience?
Yeah.
What is the convenience here? Explain it to me.
Yes.
No explanation. Oh, you just are trying to be negative towards my love story, blah, 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 blah. It's never anything right. She's like, I know maybe I might have upset you or you are upset, but I don't understand as to why. And I was like, okay. I was like, okay, you know what? Every single time we talk, not only do you degrade me, you constantly are degrading me. There's nothing ever good enough for you. Now you are treating me as an acquaintance. If this is how you want to move, it's fine. You know what? I'm just going to cut off communication right now because this is not good for my mental health.
Yeah.
Like, I was struggling. My mental health was struggling. I was not doing well.
Yeah.
So since I stopped talking to her, she has gone to other family members. I don't know what's wrong with her. She refuses to talk to me, blah, 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 blah. And I had told her, you know what? My condition is you admit where you did wrong. Because you've never said you're sorry. You've never once apologized for anything. That's another thing. My mom will never apologize. Come hell, high water, she will never apologize. There will be a camera catching her doing an act and she'll be like, that's not me. So I was like, you need to at least acknowledge like some of the things that you did hurt me as a person. And it's not okay. Like, you did that. And then for me, the minute you say, hey, I noticed that this is what I did and I'm sorry, I'm good to move forward. But like, and that was my only condition. I was like, just admit you're sorry and then we can move forward. That did not happen. She's calling my grandmother and my grandmother is like calling me saying, this is not the child I raised. What's going on? You don't cut people off. You don't, and then like, mind you, me saying I'm cutting you off is like, I'm not blocking you.
Yeah.
Just in case there's an emergency, I'm not going to block you. I'm just going to stop communication.
This is all starting to make a hell of a lot of sense in terms of the lessons, and I'll fill those in. But it's starting to make so much sense.
So it's like, okay, you know what? I told my grandma, I was like, for reasons, I was like, hey, this is what she needs to do in order for us to move forward. My grandma's like, you know what? I don't, like, you know me as a person, I'm not going to say you should cut off communication. But she's like, I know you and the person that you are is not the person who's going to do this lightly.
Yeah.
So move as you wish, but remember, this is your mother. And then like, at the same time, I was also going to therapy. And my therapist is the type of person who call me out even when I'm like, okay, I want you to be on my side. She was like, for your mental health, cut off communication.
Can I tell you something very personal to me?
Yeah.
I had an issue with a very, very close family member. So I'm talking nuclear, right? My immediate family. That was giving me so much stress that if I thought about that family member or I had a conversation with that family member, I would have palpitations and I would have chest pains for 3 days nonstop. So I was getting worried. I went over to a doctor and they said it was costochondritis or something like that. Yeah, well, but then because of the frequency, they were like, no, it can't be this. It's only after I spoke to my therapist about it that they said that what you're actually feeling is genuine heartache. And this heartache is not going to be healed unless you cut off this family member. And I did not talk to them for 2 years straight. And it's only after that 2-year sabbatical that it all made sense. Because now when I engaged them again beyond that point, I had peace and I had no more chest pains every time I spoke to them. So I totally relate to this therapist recommending for you, because for your own peace, for your sanity, for your mental health, and for your actual physical health, it was necessary.
Oh, yeah. Like, I had, with this relationship, it's so bad to the point, like, Tinto, I get what you're saying would happen with me. And like, I will even like panic attacks. I was like on medication for panic attacks.
All of that.
And then like, I don't want to talk about, like the, wanting to end yourself and end life. I know it's like very touching. It's a very touchy subject, but like I was there at points. And then it's just like, even the thing is, every single person who was around me, my friends, they would notice it. And then they'll be like, hey, I have noticed whenever you talk to your mom, not even 2 days later, you start acting this way and you start putting yourself down so much and you get so depressed. And I was like, no. And then every single time they made it a point to call it out to me each time. And it started being like a broken record and you're so annoyed. Like, hey, can you people stop? Like it's not my mom. Like, but they'll be like, each time you talk to her, you don't act like yourself anymore because you're always genuinely the bubbliest, happiest person we know. But each time this woman comes around or she comes to visit you, you are not yourself. You just like disintegrate in front of us, and this is not healthy. But I was looking at things with rose-colored glasses on, until like her marriage. I feel like that was the thing that opened my eyes. And I was like, okay, this is not a healthy relationship. And then I stopped communication. And then when she tried reaching out and whatnot, I was like, okay, you know what? Fine, I'll give in. And then let's see, like, where we take this, right? I told her, I was like, hey, I'm willing to talk to you, but only under the supervision of a therapist. I'm not going to talk to you outside of these boundaries. These are my boundaries. So she was like, okay, fine. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to work on myself. I'm ready for this. Like, I want to have a relationship with my daughter. I was like, okay, hey, we're making progress. I was so happy. Oh my goodness. I was beyond happy. I'm telling my roommate, I'm telling my friends, like, we're going to therapy. She's going to do the work. Maybe me cutting off communication this time actually worked. Something clicked in her head. And we had a Zoom therapy session because we're both not in the same city. And with the whole time she was sitting there, and then like we'll bring up like the reasons why we're not communicating. And then she's like, well, I was not aware of the fact that I didn't tell you about my husband. I just didn't want bad energy from people. And on top of that, like, I talked to you about him. I am looking like an idiot. I am shaking because first of all, confronting her with all these things is so hard. So every single thing I say, like, I'm like, okay, what about my dad's passing? I didn't hear anything about it. You didn't share anything. You told everybody not to share information. And then to find out later on from my aunties, because one of them actually snuck their phone, they took pictures and sent them to me. That I could have had a conversation with my dad. Because my mom was like, you are not allowed to have phones in the ICU. You can't have phones. And then one of my aunties was like, no, that's not true. You could have talked to him. Like, yeah, he mentally wasn't there 100% of the time. But like most of the time, so he was lucid and you could have had a conversation. You could have like at least said goodbye. Oh so God. I'm bringing all of this up and I am crying. And she's like, no, that didn't happen. And then the therapist is looking at me like I'm the crazy one in all of this situation. And at the end of the session, she's like, okay, how do you guys want to proceed forward? I was like, you know what? This session just showed me who you are. And if you can't even admit to the things that happened and you're saying like, because I was starting to second guess myself. I'm like, am I the one who's lying? Did she actually try to make all of these things happen? And I'm the one who's like, in my head about it. And you start double like thinking about everything, like, doubting yourself. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm done. I told the therapist, I told her, I was like, I'm done. I'll talk to you when I'm ready. And clearly you are not ready. So that's it. And then, yeah, since that was like, I want to say 9 months ago.
Lord have mercy.
And I've been thriving.
You say that,
So,
but
honestly,
it's really a lot to take in, eh?
It is, but like, since like I've cut her off, that's one of the things. Is like even standing up for myself, because there were times where I had been attacked at work and severely attacked, but then I'll try and justify it because my mom would be like, "Hey, it's your job. There's some things like you're like, this is what you're supposed to do," and then I'm like, no, any other human being, if this happened to anybody else, that's not okay. So why is it okay for me? Right? So you start having those conversations, and then I'm just like, I am happier. Like now I can like genuinely be myself in front of people without being worried. Like, but if somebody says, hey, that's not okay, you can't laugh or smile that way. Nobody likes it because, we couldn't laugh and smile any way we wanted to laugh when we were growing up. So, or just genuinely just being happy is now acceptable. I have so much more confidence in myself because I'm like, I'm not being told every single day, like, oh, something is wrong with you, this and this. She's picking at everything. I'm like looking and finding like appreciation. And it's sad that this is why I like brought it forth, but I'm like, yeah. God has has a way, there's a thing for everybody, and this was my growth story, I suppose.
Do you know, I really don't know which of these kind of stories impact me the most, whether it's the romantic ones or it's the family ones. Because my view of family and what family should be and what family is versus the reality for other people just throws me off so bad.
I think that's what I struggled with because I wanted, like you have that picture in your head. This is what family is supposed to be. And you constantly keep hoping and praying that next time it's going to be it, but it's not. So it's like,
Well, one thing I've always been taught by those close to me is feel every emotion to the full because that's the best way that you can heal. So whatever it is that you're feeling, feel it to the max because once you exhaust an emotion, it can't get any better of you. The only way is up.
Yeah.
If you're hopelessly sad and also have the blessing of a strong mental state that supports you, not to encourage you to take your own life, you can't become any sadder. The only way is up. It might take 3 months, 6, whatever time it takes. The eventual position is going to be a better place than where you are right now. It feels to me like you engaging the therapist has kind of given you that crutch to lean on and get you to a spot where you can talk to me about this openly. And also not just and not just to me, but to everybody else listening to this episode who might be having something similar and struggling with relationships that they have with their parents.
That is true.
Which really just brings me to the 4 lessons that you have as I wrap this up. Your first lesson is not everybody's meant to be a parent, and I totally get it. And I'm not saying that your mom is a bad parent or she's got bad parenting skills, but what I can say is some of the actions that she has done and some of the behavior she's exhibited to you as a child has impacted you in a way that's caused you panic attacks. That has given you anxiety, that has made you nervous about being around adults to the point where you had to go and get support from a therapist. So I totally get that. And then lesson number 2, you can't change people who don't want to change. Well, she is who she is. And lesson number 3, accountability is everything. Because another thing that becomes very natural to humans is to finger point and say that you did this, you did this, you did that. And I'm like this because of A, B, C, D, E. But whenever you point a finger at somebody, you got 4 others 3. I've just tried it. You got 3 others pointing right back at you. So what is it about you that is 3 times the reason why I'm the way that I am? So I get that. Accountability is everything. And then number 4, there's no understanding crazy. I don't even know how you can even try to begin to understand what was happening with your mom, because
wait, sorry to cut you off.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I just had I just remember something to just end it on a very interesting note.
Yeah.
She's now a full-time pastor as well.
Lord have mercy. Listen, stick to what your name means, Kahina. You're a fortune teller. Stick to getting the fortune. Seeing what's happening ahead of time without needing to associate yourself with the church. Because, what? I am speechless.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to another episode of The Feeling Station. I'm your host, Tinto, and I look forward to catching you in next weekend's episode. Peace.
Thanks.